Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at an Arcam, and this is a model Alpha 7R. In terms of general specifications, power output is 45 watts per channel into 8 ohms, but this will increase to 80 watts per channel if you connect 4 ohm speakers. Frequency response is 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Total harmonic distortion is 0.01%. Input sensitivity is 2.7 millivolts for the moving magnet input, and 250 millivolts for all of your other line inputs. Pre-amplifier output, maximum amplitude there is 510 millivolts. And you have quite a broad range of speaker impedance, so you can go down to a minimum of 4 ohms up to a maximum of 16 ohms. And dimensions, height, width and depth is 85 by 430 by 330, and the weight of the amplifier is 4.5 kilograms. From the front, the input selection is manual, but you have the ability via the different push buttons to select, for example, tape input. You can go direct, so you are bypassing the tone control circuits, and you can also select the secondary set of speaker terminals. There's also a 1/4-inch jack socket for private listening if you're going to connect headphones. From new, the amplifier would have been provided with a small remote control, and that remote control can place the amplifier into standby mode, as well as operate the motorized volume control. So here what we show you is the top cover removed from the amplifier, and what you can see there is that this is the ground connection which connects to the mains input socket. And what I found immediately was that this was loose, so this had to be resoldered because this in turn is a common ground connection for the whole of the amplifier, so needs to be in place. So what was the issue when the amplifier came in? Well, what the owner reported was that the power protection fuse that you see here, and this is a time delay 1.25 amp fuse, 20 millimeters by 5 millimeters, had blown. And straight away, if you sort of look inside of that glass tube, you can see that it's blackened, and that indicates that fuse wire is vaporized, and that's due to excess current draw. Now, that can be caused by a number of different reasons. There may well be an issue with the transformer primary, there could be an issue with the secondary side of the transformer, but what you tend to find, the reason for the failure, is normally associated with the output MOSFETs. And what I'm showing you now is the left channel of the amplifier, and these output MOSFETs are International Rectifier 640N. And what you can see at the back is the multimeter, and what it's indicating there is 4.98 ohms. So straight away you can see that we have short circuit MOSFETs on the left channel. But before we sort of go into a little bit more detail, because there's something a little bit peculiar with regard to these parts, and I'll sort of come to that later on in the tutorial. As with all of these repairs, when we do the Arcam series, it's really best to just take this systematic approach, and I always mention that. So there's a whole load of things that we need to do, and not just focus on just replacing the MOSFETs and then maybe adjusting the idle or bias current and saying, well, that's it. We need to build some longevity back into the amplifier, because we know from experience that many of the issues that I'm going to talk about in a moment are all age related. So here you can see that what we've done, if you've just removed the front plastic bezel, and that's straightforward. You have 2 screws either side, left and right, and then there's just plastic tabs which clip in underneath the amplifier, and of course you just pull off the control knobs, and then you can just unclip it and then it comes away, and you can see this metal cage arrangement here. Just for information, it's always best just to double check these locking nuts before you do the reassembly of these control potentiometers. Sometimes you can find that a little bit loose, and of course if they move then they're going to make some kind of electrical noise that you may well hear. And then once you remove the screws from the main circuit board, and then also remove the screws which fix the back panel to the main amplifier chassis, what I'm highlighting here is the age-related issues. So the first one, and again I've mentioned this in previous tutorials, I just work left to right from the rear of the amplifier. So when you look in detail, what you'll find is that there are dry solder joints here, and there is cracking around all of these RCA input phono sockets. So again, just take your time and then just resolder all of those connections. Also make sure that if this is maybe the first time you're doing this kind of work, that you don't accidentally get any solder bridges. And then here, as we move across, what I'm circling here are the solder pins for the MOSFETs. So here on the left hand channel, of course I desolder them, and then I replace them with brand new International Rectifier MOSFETs. Just a word of caution, just ensure that you source from a reputable known supplier, as the market is flooded with counterfeit devices. And like transistors, MOSFETs also can be counterfeit, and to all intents and purposes they look kind of like the genuine item, but on closer inspection you find out that they're not, and they will definitely fail when they're installed, or you may have issues just trying to bias them in. And then once those dry solder joints have been taken care of, what we look at here is the input main socket. Now, although it's riveted into the board, you still get movement, and it's not uncommon to find dry solder joints around these pins and also cracking. And then on this photograph here, we move now towards the headphone socket. And then if you plug in the jack plug from your headphones, then it will disengage the speaker protection relay and effectively mute the amplifier from the speakers. And then what I've done is I've also put a circle around the tape selection switch, and it's very common to also find cracks and bad solder joints here. And then this photograph is just showing you the bass, treble and balance control potentiometers. Same issue, always cracks around there, so just re-solder them. And then we then come to the input selection switch. And because this is a 7R, you only have 2 banks of pins to desolder. On the 8R, you'll find that there are additional wafers on that switch. And the common issue here, like we said for the headphone jack socket, if you look at the pins, you can actually see in some cases that they're just moving around and there's a very minimal amount of solder. The issue there is the most common complaint which you tend to hear is that the customer reports or the owner reports intermittent loss of sound, and maybe if they move the input selection switch backwards and forwards, they can get it operating momentarily and then it could then fail again. But with the input selection switch, you do have to remove it, and the reason being is that you get a buildup of oxidization on the wafers within the switch, and also the original lubricating grease can also dry out, and that causes this intermittent loss of sound. So if you were looking at it and you said, okay, I'm just going to resolder the pins because they look to be dry, you may still have this issue with sound loss. So you have to do this, what we're showing here. It's quite straightforward, but it's one of those things, if you do it for the first time, it probably is a little bit tricky, but once you've done a number of these, it's a straightforward procedure. The best thing to remove the back cover is just use maybe an old set of side cutters, and then you can just bend the tabs and then slide off the back plate, and then you've got access to the individual wafers. And what you would do here is just use, for example, a degreasing agent. So for me, I use Service-Alt Super 10, and then I just take a fiberglass pencil, rotate it round backwards and forwards, and then that will clear away all of that oxidization from the wafer contacts and then also the switching contacts. And then I apply De-Oxit D5, reassemble just to provide the longevity. Now, sometimes what can be overlooked is the volume control potentiometer, because it's mounted on its own PCB via this multi-ribbon cable. When you turn it over, it's not uncommon again to find dry solder joints, so just resolder all of those. Now, the other thing that you need also to take note of is this small Omron relay. So this is a speaker protection relay, and because this amplifier has probably seen good service, it's been in operation for many years, the switching contacts inside become worn and also oxidized. So you can't open it, it's a sealed unit, so we just simply fit a brand new relay into there. And then once all that work has been done, the next part is really to adjust the bias. And what you're looking to do here is that you are adjusting the bias current, and you're going to be measuring that then against, in this example for the right channel, R101. And then when I'm measuring across there, I'm looking for a reading of 3 to 3.4 millivolts. And here I will adjust RV101. Now, leave the amplifier probably running for about 15 to 20 minutes, just for stabilization. And you shouldn't have any inputs connected, your volume control at minimum, and no speakers connected. And then your other user controls, for example, balance, bass and treble, just at the midpoint position. And then what I'm showing you now is before the adjustment. Now remember, these output MOSFETs on the left channel have been replaced, and the service manual will advise you to fully rotate the preset, which is circled in red, fully anti-clockwise, i.e. minimum bias. When I came to do the adjustment, I would say that that preset potentiometer, which is value is 10 k ohms, was very, very coarse. It was quite crunchy as you rotated it, so the procedure at that point was stopped. and then the amplifier board removed again, and I've fitted into there a brand new 10K preset. Very, very smooth, of course, because it's a new device, then to adjust the bias. So here, 1.50 millivolts, and then after adjustment, it's 3.20 millivolts. And then on the next channel, so we're now focusing on the right channel, you can see that this is slightly high, so it's running at 3.71 millivolts. And then after the adjustment, we just bring it back within the factory tolerance range of 3.18 millivolts. Now, the other part of this amplifier service is also to remove any dust from the main circuit board. The good news is that this amplifier didn't come from a damp or humid environment, and there was no sign of any liquid damage or anything like that. So the owner really kept this amplifier in pristine condition. So you really only need a stiff brush and maybe a small degree of compressed air just to clear all of that dust out of there. And then once the board is removed, as I said, you've got access to the chassis, and then you can just clean that again with just a brush. And then here what you show on this photograph is all of the different failed parts. So you can see that on the left hand side, that's the 10K ohm preset. You can see the two failed fuses because there is also a replacement fuse in a small carrier assembly on the board. The owner of the amplifier had tried the other fuse and it had failed. And then you can also see the Omron relay, and I'll put the part number for the relay in the description for the video. So the bit that I want to sort of highlight here is the output MOSFETs. And what I found was that one of the MOSFETs is an international rectifier device, but then the other MOSFET is an ST micro device. So I was a bit sort of bemused as to why different brands of MOSFETs would have been installed. Normally when you get an output channel failure, both MOSFETs fail at the same time, and it would not be good practice to fit in a different manufacturer device, i.e. they should be matching. And then the last part really of the repair and service is to put the amplifier into a full functional test, and the amplifier ran, I would say, probably for about 3 hours, and the amplifier performed flawlessly. Absolutely superb sound quality comes from these amplifiers. And if you are thinking of doing any refurbishment of this model, if you follow through with the information that's provided in this tutorial, then you'll be able to quickly restore an amplifier, which is going to give you many, many years of pleasure. So that sort of brings us to the end of this repair tutorial, and as always I really appreciate you stopping by, and if you need any help, guidance or support, by all means email audioamplifierservicing@aol.com and I'll be more than happy to come back to you and provide any help that you may require. So until the next time, I wish you all the very best. Cheers and bye-bye.